So who am I talking with?
Talking to Andrew Arruda.
And what do you do, Andrew? I don't know.
Well, for folks who are tuning in who might not know, I am the co-founder of a company called Ross Intelligence, and we operate within the legal research space. And our big thing was bringing in kind of the latest and greatest in artificial intelligence into our industry. That happened around 4.5, 5 years ago. Folks thought I was crazy. I think people think I'm still crazy, but
today, around slower than you used to.
Yes. But today we announced a big Clio integration, and we continue to do some amazing things. And the team we're just honored to have been growing the way we have been.
What were you doing before you founded the company?
So I was a lawyer, I was an attorney, but the way that I like to say it is I'm a first-generation immigrant, and growing up, my parents told me I could be anything I wanted in the world, so long it was a doctor, lawyer, engineer.
That's about right.
Yeah.
My dad was an engineer. My mom would say, you can grow up to be a doctor, a lawyer, or president of the United States.
Yes, yeah. That could have been another option. And so I feel like that was... Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I feel like I do think you can learn aspects of entrepreneurship, but I do think a lot of it just comes innately from within you.
Right.
And right when I was a kid, I was, setting up a stand selling soda outside of, the baseball park near in the local park. I had a lemonade stand. I was doing yard sales. I was always kind of doing something.
So when you say first-generation immigrant, from where?
So from Portugal, but the islands of Portugal. So there are these tiny archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 2 hours plane to Europe, 4 hours. Yeah, so kind of in the middle of nowhere in many ways, and I think actually that has helped me in my entrepreneurship.
So did your family move here?
Yes,
folks?
Yeah, my folks. Yeah, so both my parents were born there, moved to Canada, met each other in Canada actually, which is funny because they were both actually from the island, but grew up in little Portugal. So I think that ingenuity and some of that grit came as well, but I would say ever since I was a kid I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I became a lawyer, and then once I started seeing what was happening in law, I figured I could build a company in the space.
First off, Portugal and Greece are the two finest countries in Europe.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, last year in the UK, and we got on the plane, so we're going down to Portugal again for a week.
Yeah.
Great country.
It's beautiful, yeah.
So, from the entrepreneurial standpoint, what did your folks do? That you saw the entrepreneurial thing. Where did you see it?
Yeah, I think my dad is in aluminum and my mom is in banker, so not necessarily entrepreneurial that way, but I think I got from them the entrepreneurship just being immigrants and from my grandparents who kind of brought everyone over in my community that I was living in. It was all about kind of thinking of ways to kind of start with nothing and kind of build up. How are you going to buy a house if you just moved somewhere? How are you going to learn a new language? So there's a lot of that mentality of kind of you'll figure it out and hard work and being trustworthy and being someone that people respectable and all those type of characteristics that I think I got from them.
Yeah, it is. When you talk to people, you talk to families that come to the States, and we take for granted everything.
Yeah.
And some come where they have professional degrees, and they come to the United States and they have nothing.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that professional degree anymore.
Yeah.
They've got to find a way to support their family. And like you said, how am I going to own a house?
Yes.
How am I going to allow my kids to go to college? All these things. They all know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But they aren't certain how.
And I think actually that actually almost segues perfectly into kind of entrepreneurship, because you are certain you might find a problem. You know what you're hoping to do, but you don't know how. And so I think I've always kind of directly thought of that as my training, with this kind of burning desire ever since I was a kid, coupled with, I think there was this moment where I actually remember the moment when I first started using the internet. I would sign up at a local library near me, and the first time I was searching before Google came out, I was on Alta Vista, I was on this and that. And then a librarian came up to me and said, hey, because they knew me because I was always trying to sign in for the internet. They're like, have you heard about Google? And I remember I typed in my first search, and it changed my life, because I was like, wow, there is technology that is linking us all together, and this is going to be this will fundamentally change what it means to be human. And so I think once I graduated law school, I was a lawyer, so my parents were happy. And also, I think it provided me with a really good
Where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school up in Canada, up at a University of Saskatchewan, which was amazing. And I'm proud to be working with them still. But yeah, so I finished there. I was at a law firm. Actually, I was working at a small law firm from the first year of undergrad. And actually, I would take night courses at university, and I'd work there during the day in an administrative capacity, kind of filing things, making coffee, anything they needed me. And I actually worked there from my first year of undergrad all the way until I finished law school. So by the time I graduated law school, I had been intimately aware of some of the challenges that lawyers face, particularly solo small law firms, in what they face. And so that's kind of what was the impetus behind me collaborating with my co-founder Gmo in starting Ross.
How did you find your co-founder? I mean,
So
how did you find each other?
So that actually is kind of a fun story too. So I was at an event in Toronto, and a friend of mine, I was talking about how my original idea was, by being at my law firm for, at that point, 6-7 years, as I was graduating law school, I said, look, I want to build a small law firm that is connected potentially with other solos and small law firms, so that we could swap precedent documents, we could collaborate, and we could start referring to each other. I just thought that technology could help facilitate that. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who was in banking, and he said, hey, you know what? If you're passionate about technology, you should meet Gmo. Gmo's an AI researcher, and he's really passionate about technology. And so I went to an event, I met Gmo, and I started telling him about how I thought law should change. He was really passionate about changing law based off of some of the things that from his childhood. And he said, we went back and forth, and then I started explaining to him how we did research. And I remember he was like, wait a minute, so this takes all these hours? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, and you know, how, like, why don't you do it this way, or why don't you do it that way? And I was like, well, I mean, that should happen. And then he looked at me and was like, why don't we do this? And I remember there was this concept between he and I that we said, someone will do this and kind of rethink the way you do research using AI. And we just said to each other, why wouldn't, could be us? Because at that point, and I think that was that belief and whatever, and just kind of, I think it was naivete, like we just didn't know as big of a challenge ahead of us was.
Yeah, when you're
kind of foolish.
It was years ago when my best friend back in Wisconsin, we talked about getting things done, and he goes, you know, it's harder the older you get, because you see the brick walls and you see the hurdles that you got to clear. When you're younger, you have no idea how the pain points are what they're going to be and how hard they are going to be to clear. All you can see is the valley on the other side of the mountain. It's as clear as it can be. Like, oh, of course we can do it.
Yes.
Why not? Somebody's got to do it, so we'll just do it. And then you have all these challenges. How were you able to fund that additional thing to say, okay, we can live without food, without rent, so we don't have any money?
So at first we moved into a basement and lived off of, we had zero savings, so what we did was just started opening up different credit cards.
I did that. I did it 3 times. With my first company, I took it to $100,000 twice. LexBlog went to about 50 or 75 a couple times.
So you know what it means.
And back then we used to get 0% interest too.
Well, ours was not 0%. And we were very happy when we first got our first investments to then pay off all that debt. But that's what we did. We kind of we sat around, and I think it's funny that you say that we genuinely, I remember us sitting there, and I'm sure if we had taped ourselves, people might have thought we were kind of crazy or delusional, because we were sitting there and we would say, okay, then when we do this, in a year or two, this will happen, and this will happen, and of course it'll work out like that. And I almost kind of, like, I'm glad that me, myself, wasn't there, because I would have said, hey, that's not how any of this is going to work out. But it was, I mean, it's been an extremely rewarding time, but it's been so difficult. In entrepreneurship, I think sometimes folks see the funding announcements, or they see integration announcements, or they see all these different partnerships and testimonials from our users. I'm so glad that we've been releasing more and more of those, but they don't see like all those nights, the sleepless nights and hard work, which makes it worth it. But as you know yourself,
I mean, hell, I remember one time we were probably a year and a half or 2 years in. I remember walking up the street, stopping at a park bench and crying because I wasn't sure I could make payroll, and like 3 more payrolls.
Yes,
I didn't have to figure out.
No one talks about that when you're going through there.
But somehow, because you know you're going to make it, you figure it away. The next morning you wake up, you'll get it. Like next morning I woke up and I go, wow. Rather than nuisance my clients by having them pay once a month, they could pay once a year. So we'll just email them and tell them, as a courtesy to them, they can have 10% off if they want to pay by the year. Sure, we had a whole bunch of money in within like 2 weeks. And I go, that problem is long solved. I
love that story, because it reminds me, like, sometimes when Gmo and I are going back and forth on a problem we're trying to solve. He'll look at me sometimes, and I'm usually kind of I'm the worrier. I'm like, oh, Gmo, how's this? He looks at me and he goes, Andrew, you do realize that like 2 years ago, we didn't have this, we didn't have this, we didn't have this, and we still weren't as worried as you are right now. And I'm like,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just somehow you wade through it.
Yeah.
And if you guys end up having a family, it's a great role model for the family to watch.
Yeah.
Their parents deal with this crazy fiasco. Of entrepreneurship. And you got married how long?
A few months ago, so earlier this year.
Oh, I was going to say like a year ago.
Yeah.
But I've been able to see
May.
you do a little bit more to try to enjoy your life.
That's right.
I was able to follow it on Facebook. See you guys take some trips. Where you get a chance to be happy.
Yes. Well, I think that's the most important thing, and I think if there's anything for the folks who are listening in now or even are going to return and view this afterwards, I think one of the lessons I learned the most was how part of the amazing thing about being motivated by an idea you love is some of the danger as well. Because I could work for 24 hours straight on Ross, and then I have forgotten about myself, my friends, my family, etc. And I think that over the last, even before I got married, I think it was one of those things where I started to say to myself, how can I be more thoughtful in my life, prioritizing myself? And I think part of that, and I was joking with you before we started the interview, that part of it has also come via our success. Once we've become as successful as we are, especially over the last year, 2 years, we've been able to hire such amazing people who have taken that burden. But that being said, it also is a decision as an entrepreneur that you have to make, and how much of this are you going to be plugged in and taking those thoughtful breaks. And I've been really lucky to have an awesome kind of life partner, and we go out and we hike, and she isn't in legal, but very good to bounce ideas off.
She's a doctor.
She's a doctor, yeah.
I mean, just to get a whole different take on life.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. What do you think of coming to Clio?
I've been coming for many, many years, and I did the morning run this morning, and I think it's a fun story to kind of show.
I saw you guys. I was coming back. I saw these people. There's 20 or 30 people. I'm out running, coming back, and I saw 20 or 30 people. I go, this must be the Clio group or something.
Yeah. But what was funny is when those early morning runs would happen at some of the Clios in the past, there'd be 3 or 4 of us, Jack included. Like it was more like a conversation. Hey, do you want to go for a jog tomorrow morning? Yeah, sure. Whereas this one, there was coaches, there was sign up, there was so many people, and why I think that really speaks to how much Clio has grown. And I think Jack's opening keynote did a really great job in talking about how I think Clio has been one of the kind of indicators that you can easily check to see the health of the legal technology community at large. Like them getting this funding and what's happening, I think shows that our industry is maturing, and I think this environment.
It is, but they're a unique bird.
They are.
I mean,
they are.
Jack is a unique person. I remember meeting him before Clio launched. I remember one of the things, we're just sitting there talking in a Starbucks, and we're talking about running watches. And he goes, I really like this Garment watch I got.
Yeah.
He goes, I've been running every day for X amount of years, and I'm going, really?
Yeah.
I looked at Jack, and I'm thinking, you're a big guy, tall, big.
Yeah.
And he has.
Yeah.
And he's one of the people that inspired me to start running every day about 3.5 years ago. Yeah. But he's a unique person.
He is.
He sees things that other people do not. He's really smart. He's very much a people person.
He is.
People are attracted to just hanging out with him.
Yeah.
He by developing that mission that all of us have, but can you recruit as strongly as they do to get people to leave other places to say, I got to go to Clio because of the mission. I don't know anything about
legal
the space.
Yeah.
I don't even know anything about this technology. It's a very unique thing. I don't know that it always happens.
I agree,
and especially in legal tech. I mean, I think my gut tells me that you have that 250 million, and that's like a magnet. You're going to have the people in the financial circles that can pick up distressed assets in legal tech and try to get Clio to buy them.
Oh yeah, maybe. I think, well, first of all, I couldn't agree more about Jack as a leader. And as a matter of fact, a few months ago, we announced that Jack joined our team as on our board.
I saw that. That's great.
So why we did that?
I was jealous. I said, why didn't I do that a long time ago?
well, thank you.
No, it's great.
And part of that was because we hope to grow in a similar way as Clio, and I feel like we've been making strides towards that. But I also wanted to ensure that we brought in someone as thoughtful and as just unique and just special as Jack to help us guide, because that's come with, as Gmo and I have continued along with Ross, realized is there's a lot of things that we do great, but there's a lot of shortcomings that we have as leaders, and how can we bring the right people around that? Right. And so I couldn't agree more about Jack, but I also think what this has indicated to me is that financially, for folks to make that bet on legal, I think that's huge. And I also think just once that announcement went up, my inbox was absolutely inundated with almost any investor that has ever talked to me ever wanting to throw some additional money, which is actually, I mean, if you don't do the right job with that, I think that's a problem. But I think that has certainly been something awesome, because it allows us to kind of continue to expand, and it shows that there are huge successes in our industry, and in a very relatively short amount of time. I think it feels long with Clio, but things take its time, and it's not that, it's very fast.
It's very fast. We used to have 2,000 people here.
That's amazing.
Fast. I mean,
it's amazing.
Basically say, okay, 10 years there were 200.
Crazy.
Could there be $5,000 or $7,000 people here
within
in another 2 or 3 years? Yeah,
I think so.
And then you take a look at maybe even some of the stuff coming together as far as the inefficiencies and improvements in delivery of legal services. Once that tilts, where the model goes away based on hours, having a team of people that are billing $400 an hour, so you make $2.5 million. You have a model based on inefficiency. Once that tips, using technology like yours, using technology like Clio, it probably could open up. I may be too short-sighted. Maybe I become more cynical when I thought it was going to happen a number of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we all wish it happens quicker, but I think, like, for example, the other day I realized that this, like the iPhone recently celebrated just over 10 years itself, right? Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that if you think about on a subway or a public transportation platform, and someone had a smartphone, now we're all just staring at our smartphones. But if you thought about 5 years ago, 8 years ago, no one had one. And then the empires that were built on that, like Uber and this and Twitter, all this stuff. So I just feel like things happen faster than we think, but when you're in the eye of the storm, especially because we've been coming to Clio and we're in the industry, sometimes we obviously want it to go faster.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Absolutely.